What is up, and welcome to Twin Dragon Podcast Show. We're your hosts. My name is Mike.
And I'm Bobby. The show will be about two young working professionals going through the craziness of life. We'll have fun conversations about current events and what's happening in our lives. So, why do you want to know more?
Well, if you're bored at home, eating, or just chilling, and want to listen to something new, you've come to the right place. Hey guys, welcome back. This is Mike here.
This is Bobby.
And we're your hosts for this new episode. So today we're going to talk about med school applications. So to start off, I thought it'd be just good to maybe Bobby ask some questions, and then I'll probably jump in, just talk about my own sort of experience and what's it like. Maybe also give you guys some tips if those of you who have the aspiration of becoming doctors yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need tips on just applying and stuff, especially first generations.
Yeah, it's a very sort of complex matter, but yeah, so I just hope maybe this episode I can give you some sort of tips and tricks and also things to watch out for and look out for, and also just a little bit about what to sort of expect in med school. Although I'm not completely done with it, but I've got a couple years under my belt now.
How many years?
I'm in my third year.
But you're almost done with your third year, right?
Kind of, not really. I think, yeah, actually I am almost done with my third year. This will be my last semester.
It's gonna be May. No, yeah, it's gonna be April, then it's gonna be May.
May, and then it's basically we're in like the fourth years after that.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, time flies, man. Yeah, so I guess to start off with, I can just talk a little bit about sort of what the process was like for me. It honestly is like a lot like sort of like applying for college, because you have to have a college degree to go to med school. That's one of the requirements. So if you've already applied to college, then it's pretty much the same process. A lot of just writing essays. I don't know about you guys, but I hate writing essays. And getting letters of recommendation, which I'll talk about a little bit later, taking tests, putting it all together, submitting it, and going on interviews. Although interviews actually matter a little bit more for med school applications. Yeah, it was just a lot of like stuff to do. It just was like college all over again.
What was like the hardest part, I guess? Because you mentioned like you have to have a college degree, but I'm assuming like maybe someone wants to go to college, or I guess go to med school, but they want to pursue a certain degree. Do you have to have a certain degree to apply for med school?
No, actually you don't. You just need to have a degree from a college, like a 4 year college or university. And med schools don't really care what you majored in. You just need to take the special like required courses to apply. Like you got to take biochem, biology, chemistry, some physics, and biostatistics and stuff like that.
Basically, you just gotta take all the science classes.
Not all the science classes. It's called like the pre-med courses. People say like you have to take these courses in order to be able to apply to med school. So you need to take those. But other than that, you can pretty much study whatever you want.
Okay.
And you also asked like what was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta say, if you guys know what I'm talking about, I feel for you guys. But for those of you who don't know, it's called this little GPA game. Is what I like to describe it. So like
That again.
yeah, that again. We're kind of touching on some of the things to pay attention to, but I can just shed a little bit light right now. But yeah, GPA matters for med school, so you gotta do well in your classes in college. You can't be going parties like every weekend and stuff, because well, you could if you can
So the C's get degrees don't apply for med school.
yeah, no, you can't be dropping C's all day from your classes and on your like transcript. That's not gonna fly with those admission people. Yeah, so that was one of the difficult things for me, actually, just like making sure my GPA was good, because college isn't the same like in high school. They don't hold your hand or anything like that, and like in terms of like, oh, you're learning the material, do you understand
Some classes, I would say some classes do.
Not those big pre-med
Yeah,
classes.
not the big ones.
And those big classes are usually the pre-med classes I was mentioning earlier. So if you don't understand something, you better show up for office hours, or like the teacher assistant TA hours to get some help, or find somebody who knows what the heck's going on in the class, because yeah, you got to know your stuff to do well on the tests. and you got to do well on tests to get that GPA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of like what I would have done differently, let's see. I would have honestly, like, I always waver back and forth because like I major in like biochem or biochemistry. It's like the most basic kind of thing to do for like going into med school because a lot of people just major in biology and biochem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
the
yeah, I experienced that. A lot of people who are within like the science degree were pre-med, basically pre-med bio and stuff like that.
yeah, I know. It's like the most basic major ever. It's like, you're gonna learn all that stuff in med school all over again, basically. And it's like you should have just done something that you would have been more interested in and never would have had the opportunity to study, and then taking the pre-med courses, which would have included biology anyways. And so, yeah, it would have been more interesting. I think I would have majored in something different instead of biochem. It was just redundant
What
almost.
was the major you would have done?
I honestly don't
HDF?
know.
HDF?
HDF, what
Yeah.
is that?
Human development?
What the heck?
Kind
That's
of understanding relationships
no,
and
no, 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 no. That's your stuff. That's another topic, guys. That's Bobby's field. We're gonna touch that a bit later on. But no, I would probably major in something more maybe like business or like CS, like computer science.
Hmm,
Because that's all the rage and hot topic right now. Although I would have been afraid to like get my GPA destroyed. Who knows?
that's probably true.
Yeah,
A lot of people are struggling.
and more struggling, more stressful. Gotta write like good code. I'm like,
Hmm.
uh-uh. Yeah.
Well, I guess what majors did you had?
So I majored in biochemistry, like I said, and then I also majored in like this random major called Plan 2 that nobody's ever heard of, and it's not related to contraceptives. And yeah, it's a degree that's like liberal arts from UT Austin. So a little mix of both.
Do you think that was helpful, like doing Plan 2?
I think the only thing that I got from that major is how to write decent essays,
Oh, okay.
which is
I guess that's really
useful.
helpful, yeah.
Yeah, which is useful in the application process because gotta sound a little bit smart.
Did you know that going into that?
Not really. I think the only reason why I got into that was because I wrote a really good college essay for that program or for my college application. Like that was the best essay I wrote in high school. I don't think I could ever pull that off again.
So, I guess through the process, did you feel like it was hard because I guess I don't know, did your parents help you with that?
Nah, fam. My
Who
parents be like,
who I guess who helped you then?
I don't know. I just kind of did it on myself, and I just kind of like threw in my essays to maybe my dad, maybe my sister, and some other random person I can't remember off the top of my head. No, you did not read my essay.
No, I didn't.
And yeah, I think they just like proofread read my essay, just make sure it sounded like okay, the grammar, and that's pretty much it. And then I just kind of like put everything else together, basically. But if you do have people who can help you and just look things over and just like give suggestions, I think it'd be really helpful. You definitely try to do that.
But you did that during your gap year.
What? Oh yeah, my application.
So
That's
I guess
right.
that was a little less stressful because you had more time and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
for those of you who don't understand what a gap year is, it's basically where it's like a year between med school and college where like what do you mean college? So I was a smart cookie and I graduated
You basically graduated early and you
yeah
had
in
time.
college. Graduated college early and so my fourth year was basically a gap year. My supposedly fourth year of college was a gap year, meaning that I didn't have classes during that supposed fourth year because I finished early and so I had more time to apply for med school and do all this application stuff. But for those of you who don't have that luxury, it is kind of annoying because you have classes and application,
That is true.
and then you have interviews. Like you have to keep traveling, but your application's submitted already usually by like September, I think, or something. I forgot. So your senior classes don't really matter that much, so you can kind of like just YOLO a little bit
I guess how long did it take? I guess.
to apply.
Yeah.
Couple weeks to like
Oh, just weeks. Like so, I
yeah
guess a month.
a month or two just to get all those essays. But like once you finished all of them, it kind of like you just kind of like copy paste. I don't know.
So the essays were kind of like
You
very
can
similar.
yeah you can use them like over and over again. You just need to like craft them initially, which takes a little bit of work.
Yeah. And then I guess was it what you expect it to be? I guess in terms of like the applying process and just um I guess the experience.
Experience was just like college basically. I wouldn't look forward to it. Like, would I do it again? Hmm, maybe. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on the medicine route. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Oh,
Uh,
so you're saying you didn't want to go to medicine?
it was more like I didn't know what else to do with my life.
But you were able to do it basically.
Yeah, like my parents suggested it as like, oh, it's a good career. You know, you do meaningful work, you help people, save lives, you know, all that shebang, and it's a decent paying job, obviously secure. So it's a lot better. It's better than a lot of other occupations. And I was good at biology, and so I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. But I think, for some people, they might not know real clear, like, finishing college, you're still like, what, 21, and it's like very early. If you have the, ability to, take some time off and just work or explore things, it might help to figure out what you really like before investing in a lot of years in medicine. Because medical school is 4 years, and then you have to apply again at the end of medicine or med school to something called residency, which I'll talk about a little bit later, which can be from 3 to 7 years on top of that 4 years in med school. So that's a lot of years, guys.
And then I think going back on the topic of like you don't really know what you kind of want to do. I guess it's very similar to a lot of I guess somewhat not everyone but more somewhat everyone um have a hard time, finding out what they want to do with their life. I guess in terms of their major, but there's I guess so many routes they can take.
Mm,
Or they had like for me, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I guess the course of me having to take classes wasn't what happened. I ended up going to a different major and now trying to pursue a different career. I guess that's also happening when people graduate as well.
yeah, I think a lot of things can change. And that's why, having early exposure to medicine is important because, in the application, another thing is like, which I guess we can probably start talking about since it relates to so many things. It's like they want to see like you have actually explored medicine. Have you like kind of understood or saw what doctors do, how they work, what are they doing from a day to day? How does it look like when they see patients? Do you like doing that? Does it interest you? And then they want to see that actually when you do your application, like were you involved a bit? Like, did you volunteer? Did you like shadow a doctor? Stuff like that. And so that you're not just going in blindly, not knowing what in the world people do in medicine. And so that's a good way to sort of gauge like, am I really interested in this, and or do I want to check something else out? And I think like in college or even high school, if people have the time and chance to definitely just go and like join different clubs, check out different things, find something that you might be interested in. I think that's another thing that I would have done is that, I did a lot of things in college just with the mindset, oh, I'm gonna go to medicine. I'm just gonna do all these things like, join pre-med clubs, volunteer, shadow. And it's like trying to almost convince yourself, yeah, this is the path I'm gonna go. This is the way I'm gonna do it. But like towards the my last year, I actually just like took a step back, like, you know what? Let me try to see some other things like that I might be interested in. Let me just check like, some camps about programming, space, things like that, or business. Let me see like what those things are. And I think it would have been helpful to kind of do that earlier. And towards the end, I was already just kind of in that mindset of like, I'm gonna go to med school now. So I'm gonna just like join everything or do everything that's still related to medicine, basically. So it's like kind of like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're just gonna go to medicine.
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned, I guess, just on our own conversations of, I guess, of those other interests. I think I didn't know about like when those kind of started. I thought those were kind of like interests that you already had prior, before we were friends. Um, but I guess that's really interesting because I guess again going back, things that we wish we could have done, and I guess going back to the shadowing part, like you shadowing like doctors. I guess before you're in med school, like what did it look like when you're, just as in college, I guess. Like, was it interesting? Was it not interesting? Or was this just something you had to do?
Yeah, so that's dependent on the experience. You know, some shadowing experience is way more interesting because the doctors or the people actually like show you things and allow you to do things.
Oh.
But you know, my honestly, my shadow experience was so dry. Like,
Wait, are you talking about your med school experiences or college?
like this is before applying. Like when I was talking about like you need to show that you know, saw what doctors do, understand what they kind of do on a day-to-day basis, how they see patients, the workflow kind of spiel, and then you know, kind of know what you're talking about, I guess. So a lot of people shadow doctors, and there's like even programs that like allow you to pay just a shadow, which is kind of stupid to be honest. Um, and for me, the shadowing experience wasn't that interesting to be honest, because it's like you're just watching people play, and like, you know, it's like the analogy is like you're watching people play a video game that you don't understand and you can't play, and so you're just like, what am I doing? I see cool things, I guess, and maybe that can like drive your passion. But if you don't see cool things, it's just like, why did you come in? You know, oh, you have a sore throat, or oh, you have a rash. Oh, okay, do this, this, this. All right, we'll see you next time. It's like, you know, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, obviously, from a doctor perspective, like understanding, figuring out what's going on. But from like a person from med school, from a person from college, like a kid in college or high school, it's like, what just happened, dude? He's just talking to someone, like trying to fix their like problem. That's it. I guess if you like fixing problems, but you just don't see so much of it from just watching them, you know?
Yeah, I guess you kind of wanted to be part of the action, I guess.
Yes, being part of the action helps a lot.
So I guess it would be. Well, obviously, it's very different now that you're in med school because you are part of the action.
Yeah, so before we touch on, I guess like my sort of med school life, like what's it like after getting in, where I can just touch a little bit more about sort of things on the application process before we
Hmm.
move from that topic, because there's a lot of things to consider. Like first is the personal statement. Kind of like in college, you gotta write like a statement. Basically, it's like why you want to be a doctor is the question that they always ask. You know, you gotta write an essay on that. And you know, a lot of people write some really generic essays, and you know, like I want to be a doctor because I want to help people. I mean, yes, say that, but don't say it like super like cookie cutter. You know, like put some flavor into it. You know, put your own perspective.
So what did you write?
I wrote something along the lines of, like you said, I have a lot of these other interests, right, that I found out a little later towards my college uh, years. And so I just incorporated that. It's like, you know, medicine is very versatile. It touches a lot of fields like technology, business. They all work together with medicine. And I liked how that intersection works. Like I want to like combine the two to use both of those like areas to in my career. Like not just know medicine, but how can we translate it to make it better or more efficient, so to speak.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what I wrote about, like technology, space medicine. For those of you who don't know, space medicine is very cool. Shout out to that. Go Google search it if you don't know what it is. And yeah, just like those areas. And then yeah, I guess it worked for me. So that's one area. So like just put your own voice in it, like put who you are in it. That's the one area in the application where you have your voice, where you can like speak to the admissions people. Everything else is just like a list of things that you did basically and check boxes. Your score, did you do the test and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And speaking of tests, there's this big test called the MCAT that you have to take. It's kind of like the SAT, but for like, uh,
So it's more test,
yeah.
test after test.
Oh yeah, yeah. You raised a good point. Disclaimer, guys. This is what I did not know. When you choose the medicine route, guys, when you get into med school, actually before you even get in med school, you gotta take tests, right? You got the MCAT, which is like this big giant SAT test that, you know, you gotta score well on so that the admissions people think, you know, you're smart enough to, you know, succeed in med school, basically. But you have to do well on college tests, right? Because you gotta get a good GPA, which is another thing that you gotta watch out for. And generally speaking, word advice is if your GPA is below a 3.5 and you're not an engineer, I'm sorry to say that your chances are hit a little bit.
Oh
It's
man.
not impossible, but it is like sort of a soft bar in terms of like, oh, this is a decent applicant. This is something we're worried about. And also, I guess like another thing is like there are two types of um med school. There's like the DO, which is all osteopathic, and there's the MD, which is the allopathic. And so there's a little difference there. Generally speaking, the DOs osteopathic, their like score cutoff for and GPA, and by score I mean the MCAT score and the GPA point system is a little lower. Like you don't have to be as high, but for MD, the allopathic schools, they're a bit higher. Something to be on the lookout for and consider. But yeah, if your GPA is low, that's not to say it's the end of the world, but you definitely want it to be higher and ideally above a 3.7. And your MCAT score, depending on where you apply, you also kind of want to be higher. Generally for the MD schools, the allopathic schools that I mentioned, they're on the higher side, usually like 510. The average is like 500. I don't know why the scoring system is like that. It's really weird. And so obviously the higher it is, the better. And if your MCAT score is high enough, it can sort of compensate for some of your lower GPA because the MCAT is a standardized test, so it's equal. And
And I know
yeah,
that you talked about like because I guess people are getting smarter and stuff like that. I guess in a way, they're raising the scores or the
yeah,
average.
the score bars are getting higher and higher for sure. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, kind of. Actually, there's some pros. Do take notes.
Get score higher,
Score
score higher.
higher, exactly. But yeah, the average is getting higher and higher. Which is like people are just like preparing better and better and just like going harder and harder at it, and just the bar is getting higher and higher always. Like
But I guess does that seem fair? Like, because people are, are being cautious, I guess, in a way, oh, I need to score that much. I need to prepare myself. And
yeah,
then people are like saying, oh, wow, like we need to raise the bar.
yeah. It's a very like very complex topic, I would say, because it raises a whole can of worms. It's like we're making this harder and harder. It's like, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna be a good doctor if you score so high, right? Like that's not the point. The
Hmm.
point of this test is just show like it's an aptitude test. Like, can you study and are you able to learn the material and do well? But like higher score doesn't mean you're gonna be a good doctor necessarily. But it also cuts out on the people who don't have the time to prepare, right? Who are
Yeah.
busy and who don't have the resources to put all this time and effort to just get a good test score.
So I guess like, do you think that later in the future it should be changed? I guess in a way, or the people who are like making these
I highly
decisions.
doubt they're gonna change the test. To be honest, they already changed the test like literally 6 years ago, in
Um,
2015, right when I
are
took
you talking
it.
about like the way the test is formatted or the
Yeah,
score?
the score and the format of the test was changed when I took it, like right
Mm.
when I took it. So I highly doubt they're gonna change it anytime soon. Yeah, but that's one big thing. Another thing is the letter of recommendation. Do well, perform well, letters from your professors that can vouch that you're a good student, basically. Do stuff like your CV, shadowing, volunteering, show that you're interested in medicine actually, like you actually did stuff and know a little bit about what it is like to be in medicine. There are things people who do like research, like medical research, like stuff like that. I don't think it's that big of an importance. And then um, once you submit the application and all that, there are interviews you go on, which is also important. You know, you kind of want to, dress appropriately, have good fashion sense, so to speak, a little bit. You don't want to be unkempt because they do care about appearances. You're seeing patients, so you're seeing people. And yeah, I think once you get to the interview stage, it's not so much about, oh, is this person like smart? Did they do well on the scores and stuff? Like, is their application strong? Because they already think that, and that's why they're giving you an interview offer. And what they're looking for in an interview offer is, can you talk to people? Basically, are you
Oh,
just good at testing and studying, or can you actually talk to a patient?
yeah.
Like people skills, and that's what they're looking for in interviews.
How do they determine that? Like, does it just talk to you normally, or just
Yeah, just talk to you normally, have a normal conversation with one of the doctors, like the faculty, and be like, is this person like a super awkward or just like weird, or is this like a person that I can like have a cool, decent, low stakes conversation?
wouldn't you say that it's I guess yeah, they are I guess looking at that, can you hold a conversation? But everyone holds a conversation differently. And so
Yeah.
I guess how do they determine that? Because I've met your roommates and those two are also very different in terms of like holding conversation.
Well, I think it's just like very subjective, right? Like it's all different faculty who interview like
Oh,
different
okay.
people. it's not the same faculty that kind of like interviews the whole group, but like they separate like people and just like assign the applicants to certain people to interview, and so they just like talk to them. And I don't honestly, it's just a preference for to the people who interview. They play a big role, and it's kind of like
That's that's
it's
really hard then too, right? Isn't
yeah,
it?
it's kind of like up to chance sometimes. You might get somebody who's like super mean and just grills your application. It's like, why did you do that? Can you explain why you did this? I see something here. Can you explain that? Now you have to understand everything in your application that you wrote and like what you did, and you can talk about it. But sometimes it might just push you and just like, ask difficult questions during the interview too. Or they could just be really relaxed and just be like, what do you do for fun? I was like, oh yeah, I like that too. And it's like you have a conversation about like basketball or something.
What was your conversation like?
I think from Texas, there were some weird apples. I gotta say, some weird apples that interviewed me, and it's just, I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like they asked some like really, honestly, inappropriate questions,
Oh, really?
like questions that you should not ask on interviews. Like first of all, you don't ask like, oh, what other schools did you apply to? Do you think you're gonna come to our school? Like those are like illegal questions you can't ask. Like,
How
so
did you respond to that?
I don't remember. I just like, yeah, I'm thinking about this school. I think it's a good school, and I'm willing to consider it. I will consider it. Like these are the good points about the school that I like. I mean, like,
Do you
but
think those were like trick questions, maybe?
those were like trick questions that they shouldn't have asked, obviously, and they still did. And I'm sure like other places do that too. But now that I know that, I think you could probably report that somewhere to like their admissions committee, um, which I probably should have done to be honest, and I did
Mm-hmm.
not do. But like if I were to do it again, you guys can definitely watch out for that, and then do apply that. Obviously, have some smart answer to not say like, oh no, I'm not gonna think about that, or yeah, oh I really like that school, I really want to go, but don't lie, obviously too. And also, I think you can hide which schools you apply sometimes. I'm not sure if that's a thing
I
though.
think it's like kind of like those conversations. I think I've seen things on TikToks about interviews about, oh, yeah, I guess kind of like there's some situation, I heard are you applying to any other places? Yeah, it's way out topic, but I think some of the skills that they taught you is like, um, yeah, I'm applying to many different places, but one of the things that I like about your place is so and such and such.
Yeah, I think another cool trick to interviews is that you try to answer the question, but not like super clear cut, but like saying like positive things. And then the trick is to reverse the topic of conversation back to the interviewer and not talk about yourself. Because there's a psychology thing that if you get the other person to talk more about themselves, they will have the sort of notion that they really like you because everybody loves talking about themselves. And
Yes.
so if you do that, your interview will be probably good. Not gonna say 100% because nothing's 100%, but
So
that's what I did.
So I guess what kind of like I guess demeanor or posture did you come out as? Because I know you can come out as like either I guess fun or you can be really professional and just straight on straight to the conversation. So yeah, I guess what was it like? What was it for you or just
I
how
was
did
pretty
you?
laid back. I don't think I prepared. I tried preparing like some answers. Like they'll ask you like why you want to be a doctor, like generic things, like stuff like that. Like I can't think of anything else that's super generic, but stuff like that. And you have like a sort of like almost like a pre-script answer, kind of like a bullet point outline. Like oh this is what what you say like over and over again. You kind of like just memorize it. But a lot of the times it's just like a normal conversation. Um, I don't know. They just ask you questions and then you answer and then ask them questions. Because don't be just sitting there and be like, uh huh, yeah, and then you say something and then you just wait for them to ask you another question. It's like, you're trying to show that you're interested in them too, because that gives off a good, better impression. I just remember one of my interviews, like, I think like she asked me like some research thing I did, and I was talking about, yeah, I did this research. I found it was interesting, but I'm not really that interested in sort of doing this. And then she was talking about her research. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That's really cool. And I was like, what is that? Like, what is that? I'm not quite sure like what that is. I've never heard of that. And then she just talks a little bit more about that. I was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. And then like you try to like find something that you can point out that's really cool about that interest about their what they do or something, because I mean they're doctors, they're doing stuff like research, I don't know. And then you ask another questions like, oh okay, so does that mean like you do this and how does that work? And like you generally like obviously sound interested in it even if you're not that interested in it, but like when you get them to talk more about this, and like I said, it makes them feel good. And then just think like, oh, this person's really good at having conversations, you know? He can talk to people, he's very chill, relaxed, you know, just talking with me about certain things, and he's showing that he's interested in me. And so, you know, you follow up with these questions, and it's just kind of like, and then you're like, oh, look at the time, it's like 45 minutes gone, and now, you know, it's the end of the interview. It's like, oh, it was really nice to meet you, and I hope to, you know, and you close like I really like this school. I think it's really good. I'm interested in this what they have, and it's very high on my list of like schools I would consider. And like you know, thank you for this interview and stuff like that.
Anyways, I guess assumptions. Like, is there any assumptions that people make about med school or the application process?
Uh, I don't have that many sort of assumptions in my mind. Maybe like people think like med school students are nerdy. There are definitely like just smart people who are jocks too. Like my classmates, some of them are like or like varsity athletes and stuff like that.
During
And
college?
yeah, they're in
Oh
college
wow.
and they're still super smart, so they can be both. There are a lot of talented people, and there are all kinds of people in med school. It's not just like the stereotype like oh it's just some nerdy dude who's like all Asian or something or just like studies all the time.
Hmm. Well, I guess that's all that the questions I had, unless you had other I guess other things in the process.
Yeah, so advice. I don't know, some last pieces of advice. Oh yeah, I think like what I mentioned, you know, try to get a GPA as high as possible. If you don't do engineering or like CS to be honest, if you want to do med school, it just makes it a lot harder. If you can do it really well, sure by all means go, but it is definitely challenging to get that GPA if you do those majors. If your GPA is a little lower, then you have to do well on the MCAT for sure because that's like the great equalizer. And then you know get personable letters of recommendation, write a personal statement that isn't so generic, that gives you you know your voice into your application, that shows it to you. And then all this stuff is really just to you know get you an interview because you know everybody who applies doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get an interview. And so once you get the interview, again, the playing field is leveled all over again. And so you're competing with the people who got interviewed as well to show that, you know, hey, this is somebody that they want in their class, basically. But yeah, don't stress. There's a lot of people who, you know, who don't get in the first time who will apply again if they really want to go into medicine. And so it's okay if you didn't get in the first time.
Nice.
Yep. And yeah, moving along, I guess.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that that perspective of like I guess the applications for med school. I think it's yeah, I think it's something that I wish I could have done maybe it's just to say that I could maybe have done it one day.
Oh, I think there's something else I should mention. When you get interviews, guys, first of all, when you apply, each application is about $100, so keep that in mind. So if you apply to like 24 schools, that's like $2,400 or something like that. Maybe like some public schools are cheaper, but private schools at least $100 for each application. And then um, another thing is that when you go on interviews, they don't pay for anything, so you're paying everything out of pocket. Just keep that in mind as well. So it can be pretty expensive, so keep that in mind. And so, yeah, that's pretty much to the whole application med school process. I think it might be better just to save the sort of what is it like on the other side once you get in. You know, like what med school is like, what can you expect. The grass is definitely greener on the other side. So I'll keep you on that, and hopefully you guys will be stick around to hear, you know, what's it like in med school. So we'll keep you in a little suspense on what to expect in that in another topic or another session. So that's all for this episode, and thank you guys for listening. Hopefully some of that was helpful for you guys, and you know, yeah. And if you want any advice or stuff like that, I can try to sort of like you know offer some help. No guarantees though. If you guys send me like a billion things, it's gonna be pretty hard to like answer everything. But yeah, I'll see. But thanks again for listening, guys.
All right, see ya, guys. Thank you again, guys, for listening to the Twin Dragons podcast. If you guys want to know more about a topic or want us to do a specific video, let us know in the comments below.
And please like and subscribe if you want to help support us. Keep a lookout on our social media accounts so that you can keep up to date with any new episodes that come out and get connected. and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.